Over in Marvel Comics' main Amazing Spider-Man series, one of Peter Parker's longest foes, Dr. Octopus, has now come back into the fold with Norman Osborn currently in Ock's clutches. Will Peter Parker be able to save the day? And can Norman rise up and become the heroic Gold Goblin yet again? My name is Arako Brannock, and today, let's go ahead and dive into the pages of Amazing Spider-Man issue 29. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. Want to kick off our review for Amazing Spider-Man 29 by reading Marvel Comics solicitation text for the issue. Beaten and bloody with his back against the wall, has Spider-Man finally met his match? Want to introduce our creative team on Amazing Spider-Man 29. This issue is written by Zeb Wells, featuring art over from Ed McGuinness, inks from Mark Farmer, colors from Marcio Menyz, and letters from VC's Joe Caramagna. The cover for the issue is coming in over from Ed McGuinness and Marcio Menyz. Here's a look at this kind of dark cover over for Ed McGuinness, illustrating some of the kind of complicated feelings that I think Peter feels at certain moments within the issue here. I want to extend a big thank you over to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting this preview of the issue so fast. And I want to go ahead and just dive directly into Ed McGuinness's pencils to kick off our coverage. So over in terms of McGuinness's art, this is yet another issue where Zeb Wells is directly writing J. Jonah Jameson, a character that he kind of lends so much irreverence to, and getting those kind of strong expressions illustrated for JJJ over from Ed McGuinness is just absolutely thrilling. Over in this chapter of the story here, Zeb Wells once again kind of plays into the humor of Amazing Spider-Man 29, but I think due to the fact that this issue is dealing directly with some of the dark material that Norman Osborn is currently fighting through in his kind of chance to become a hero, I think the tone varies wildly over from page to page. It seems like Ed McGuinness does a great job adjusting with Zeb Wells' scripts. I think that the talking head sequences illustrated by McGuinness help give so much kind of emotion to this issue as well. There's a lot of scenes where essentially Doc Ock is just speaking kind of candidly over with Norman, and a lot of these moments could have been a little bit boring. They could have felt a little bit more flat on their face, but thanks to the really animated, intense line that McGuinness lends toward the issue, as well as some of the detail in terms of the backgrounds and the colors from Marcio Menyz, I think the art team does a great job adapting this Zeb Wells script and really kind of focusing in and fleshing out the vision of the story. To me, it almost feels like this issue is like perfectly written for Zeb Wells, because I feel like if previous Amazing Spider-Man artist John Romita Jr. contributing art to this series, I feel like that same sense of tone wouldn't have been evoked as strongly over for this art team. So really appreciate the fact that Wells seems to be tailoring his scripts depending on who the illustrator is over for the issue. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the script over on the Amazing Spider-Man issue 29. We had a lot of really fantastic moments in the story. It largely started the same way as last issue, but we immediately get the chance to check in on J. Jonah Jameson, who brings that just insane kind of slapstick energy to the issue, which is essentially kind of divided into these two subplots, as Norman is kind of working through his morality while Peter is working with J. Jonah Jameson in order to see if he can help Norman, who's currently stuck over in Otto's grasp, as well as trying to kind of power himself up in order to take on Doc Ock. I think from a scripting standpoint, this issue kind of largely takes on just a little bit of character work over in the series, but due to the fact that the main Amazing Spider-Man book ships so fast and frequently and has had so many issues at this point, I think the slower pacing of this issue and story helps kind of paint in some of the characterization. One aspect about this book that I really appreciated too was how the book folded in another additional aspect of the dark web storyline. I think the dark web story, due to the kind of influence of Limbo over on that tale, has the potential to really bring the Amazing Spider-Man book into a really intriguing direction. And in this really smart editor's note that we get over for this page, we're kind of teased that this character who makes their appearance is actually going to be coming back in later issues. So I think we'll have a couple more moments of dark web to celebrate here in the near future, which I'm really happy about because I think it expands over on this series in some fascinating directions here. I would say, in terms of the larger Amazing Spider-Man series, that this arc really needs to kind of move forward in terms of the plotting. I think this series has been inching really slowly in these past couple issues, which I haven't necessarily minded. But if this pacing doesn't kind of amp up in future installments, I think it may get to be a little bit more noticeable here as time goes on over in the Amazing Spider-Man. As one final aside here, I think one of the most compelling plot threads that this book has currently is watching Norman kind of discuss his morality over with Otto. And I love the fact that Zeb Wells directly played into that really interesting status quo to flesh out the cliffhanger on the final page. It really feels like when Zeb Wells writes out these scripts, he's aware of some of the most interesting plot threads and how to expand them in really organic ways that pay off over the long term. I've been really impressed with how closely the Amazing Spider-Man has been keeping track of Norman's kind of turn from the villainous Green Goblin over to Gold Goblin. And I think this series has really taken a close eye to fleshing out that characterization here. So at the end of the day, I think The Amazing Spider-Man 29 is yet another solid issue of the series. Love how much kind of continuity is referenced here within the subtext of the issue. Really appreciate the way that Otto challenges nearly everything Norman says to test his resolve as a hero. And I hope that kind of moving forward, even beyond the scope of this Amazing Spider-Man series, that Marvel continues to flesh out Norman Osborn as a hero within the context of the Gold Goblin here. I think it has really helped this franchise kind of stick out and develop in a really interesting way. I want to know from you, what are some of your thoughts over on The Amazing Spider-Man issue 29? Did you like this series as much as I did? What were your thoughts on this chapter? Well, thank you so much. We'll be back to cover everything kind of dark X-Men, Spider-Man, and Limbo in the near future. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.